I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, the president continues his push to get congressional support for military intervention in Syria to retaliate for an alleged chemical weapons attack. And in San Diego, the interim mayor salutes the lifeguards, but will he run? Also tonight, a look inside San Diego's newest school as they get ready for tomorrow's opening day. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. A San Diego-based aircraft carrier remains in the Arabian Sea at this hour as President Obama continues his push to get congressional support for U.S. military intervention in Syria. The USS Nimitz was supposed to be heading home but has been ordered to stay in place. The president met today with Republican senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham. They're giving conditional support for military action.
If the Congress were to reject a resolution like this, after the President of the United States has already committed to action, the consequences would be catastrophic in that the credibility of this country with friends and enemy and adversaries alike would be shredded, and there would be not only implications for this presidency but for future presidencies.
McCain and Graham say the president will have to make a strong case for attacking Syria. The sentiment is echoed by part of San Diego's congressional delegation on Twitter. Republican Darrell Issa says the president, quote, must present a clear plan focused on humanitarian intervention or national security interests, end quote, to get his vote for military intervention. And in a written statement, Democrat Juan Vargas says a classified briefing on Sunday convinced him to support President Obama's request to use limited and targeted strikes to deter the future use of chemical weapons. Back here at home, it was Todd Gloria's third day as interim San Diego mayor, and he spent it with lifeguards. He said he wanted to recognize their hard work on one of the busiest beach days of the year. But Gloria also addressed rumors of whether he'll run for mayor. KPBS reporter Claire Trageser joins us from the newsroom with more. So, Claire, what did the council president turned interim mayor have to say?
Well, he said he would make an announcement tomorrow about whether he will run, but he would not give us any clues about what that decision will be. Gloria said it's a really important decision, and he appreciates everyone's patience as he's thought it through. He also talked about his priorities for this first week in the mayor's office. Here's what he said.
My top priority is really to be present in the office to make sure I understand everything that's going on, that we have a full listing of things that need to be done right away. Secondly, I want to be out in the community as much as possible and make sure that the neighborhoods understand that we are focused on their needs. San Diego is back. It's a new day at City Hall, and that they are being heard from by the city's leadership.
And it looks like he was dressed like it's a holiday. So who else or what else is he planning, or who else is planning to run, pardon me?
That's all right. As of right now, 15 people have filed paperwork to run for mayor. The most notable is former mayoral candidate Nathan Fletcher. Gloria said today that he never would have expected to find himself in this interim mayor's seat.
A month ago, I would never have anticipated being in this position. As the son of a maid and a gardener, I certainly would have anticipated it. But I think it really shows that in this city, absolutely anything is possible. And I hope that folks, particularly in my council district and other young people, can look at this and see that, with enough hard work and playing by the rules, anything can happen that you set your mind to.
Now, another former mayoral candidate, Carl DeMaio, is also going to announce tomorrow whether he'll run for Congress or mayor. So by the end of tomorrow, we should know both Gloria and DeMaio's answers.
KPBS Metro reporter Claire Trageser. A coalition of unions and Democratic groups held their annual Labor Day rally in Escondido, saluting American workers, praising unions for advocating higher wages and health benefits. San Diego Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez is supporting a measure to raise California's minimum wage to more than $10 an hour.
There is no way somebody can actually live and pay rent, put food on the table without government assistance, even with a minimum wage job that they're able to work 40 to 60 hours. They still are not able to make ends meet.
Now, the proposal is to raise the minimum wage to $9.10 an hour. Escondido's deputy mayor says organized labor is much more than a concept. She says it's made up of real people.
They're your neighbors. They're the people that maintain your parks, that fill your potholes, that come when you dial 911. I mean, these are just the average American worker doing their part to sustain our community.
The nation's first Labor Day holiday was actually celebrated on September 5th, 1882 in New York City. Same-sex couples in California can now legally marry and face the same joys and challenges of marriage other couples do. Allison St. John speaks with a researcher who has been tracking same-sex couples for more than 10 years now.
My guest, Esther Rothblum, is a women's studies professor at San Diego State University. She has conducted one of the longest-running studies of its kind in the country into how same-sex relationships differ from opposite-sex relationships. And she's just won a big grant from the National Institutes of Health to continue a 10-year study. So, Esther, what are some of the most interesting differences that your research has found between relationships, long-term committed relationships of same-sex couples versus opposite-sex couples?
Yeah, well, first of all, the opposite-sex couples are the siblings of the same-sex couples, so they're demographically somewhat similar. But what we find is that same-sex couples report actually more relationship satisfaction, they do conflict better, and they actually share housework and childcare more than heterosexual couples. On the other hand, they are less religious. I think religious organizations are less welcoming. They're less likely to have children. They tend to live further away from their families of origin.
So if that's one of your conclusions, that they tend to be happier, why do you think that is?
Well, I think, if people believe that men are from Mars and women are from Venus, it helps to have two Martians living together because they're from the same planet. And so they do conflict the same way and relationships the same way. Many newlywed heterosexual couples actually say that it's quite an adaptation to get used to having somebody around and to sort of learn how, to function as a heterosexual couple. So I think that when you have two women or two men in a couple, chances are that they're equally good or equally bad at certain types of housework or childcare. And so it's not that one person is the expert and does most of it.
So they avoid some of the problems of opposite-sex couples, but at the same time, does it make it perhaps a little more difficult to work out how to share responsibilities when you don't have those gender roles?
I don't think it makes it more difficult. I mean, I think that typically with same-sex couples, they sort of decide, I'll do the vacuuming, you do the bathroom, things like that. They don't have these preset roles.
Okay, so now, what about staying together and commitment? What did your studies discover about how long same-sex couples in committed relationships stay together?
First of all, we found that our same-sex couples had not been together as long as their heterosexual siblings, but the research that we do and that others do find that same-sex couples report more happiness, but when things aren't going well, they break up sooner because until recently, they haven't really had any legal barriers to breaking up. So heterosexual couples stay together longer, possibly because they're more likely to have children, and they stay together for the children, possibly because they don't want to disappoint their parents or families. But that may change as same-sex marriage becomes legal in more and more states.
And do you think that the environment in which they're in makes a difference to how long they stay together?
Yeah, I think that, the couples that live in more progressive states where there are more laws protecting same-sex couples may be doing better than those that are in more conservative states that may be more antagonistic. And that's one of the things we will be looking at because our couples live all over the country.
So what do you think being allowed to legally marry how might that change same-sex relationships?
Well, first of all, I think that more couples will get married because up until now, the benefits were really meager. And I like to say that you can't be a little bit pregnant, but you can be a little bit married. Most of the benefits were at the state level, and in the U.S., the benefits of marriage tend to be at the federal level. So now I think same-sex couples will have access to federal income tax, Social Security, immigration, things like that, and that may actually motivate more couples to get married.
And do you think that traditional marriages can learn anything from what you're discovering about same-sex marriages and the gender roles being so different?
Yeah, I do think that opposite-sex couples have a lot to learn about sharing childcare and housework more, and also sharing the cost of items and things like that.
What would you say was the most surprising thing about your research, something that you really weren't expecting?
You know, I like to say that researchers should not be too surprised. They're basing their study on what's gone before. So I was glad that we didn't see some kind of shocker that had never been seen before. But I'm very curious to see, when we do our 10-year follow-up, which couples have broken up and which factors 10 years ago predicted who might be still together and who might have broken up. And I wouldn't be surprised if we actually find that opposite-sex couples break up for different reasons than same-sex couples. So I'm at the edge of my seat waiting for those first results to come in.
Fascinating. Good. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Esther Rothblum, who is a women's studies professor at San Diego State University.
Thank you.
There's an update tonight on that huge wildfire on the edge of Yosemite. It is now 60% contained. Firefighters are getting some help from cooler temperatures and higher humidity, but full containment isn't expected for another 3 weeks or so. The Navy says its future training exercises will likely kill hundreds of dolphins and whales. The Navy says bomb testing and sonar are vital to national security, but environmentalists believe it can be done with less harm to marine mammals. KPBS science reporter David Wagner is following the story and joins us from the newsroom. So how many dolphins and whales could be affected by this?
Well, we're talking about more than 300 deaths, but the Navy also estimates that millions more could suffer from injuries and behavioral changes. These numbers come from the Navy itself. They're required to assess the environmental impact of their proposed training exercises.
And David, what about the Navy's use of sonar?
Yeah, that's been a very controversial issue with the environmentalists that I spoke with. Researchers are still trying to fully understand how sonar affects marine mammals, but they found connections between sonar and recent mass whale strandings. Sonar is known to damage hearing in marine mammals, and that can prove fatal for creatures that rely on sound to move through the ocean and find food. But the Navy contends that sonar and bomb testing are essential to keeping the country safe. And they say this kind of training can't be simulated. It has to happen at sea in realistic conditions.
And remind us where these training exercises are taking place.
So many of them are going to happen right here off the coast of Southern California. Others are happening in Hawaii, the Gulf of Mexico, and the East Coast.
KPBS science and technology reporter David Wagner. San Diego's iconic new downtown Central Library won't be open to the public until the end of the month, but classes start tomorrow for students on the building's 6th and 7th floors. KPBS education reporter Kyla Calvert visited the school on move-in day.
6 days before school starts for 260 freshmen and sophomores at the new high school called E3 Civic High, the reception desk is still under construction. Boxed up furniture is making its way to the school's entrance on the library's 6th floor slowly in the one working elevator. But walking through the ongoing construction in glass-walled rooms, Director Helen Griffith can already see her school as it will be.
So this is physics. Nice size classroom. We'll have a little fabrication lab here with laser cutters and other machinery as we move into robotics.
All of the school's spaces are about working in teams. Some of the classrooms look like conference rooms, and other areas are meant to bring teachers and students together in casual ways.
It was designed as a collaborative model. You'll see glass walls, floor-to-ceiling glass. You'll see flexible seating, furniture that resembles a Starbucks, comfortable setting. You'll see spaces that are learning spaces, study niches, 21st century technology throughout the building.
To match the sophisticated environment, E3 students will have to dress professionally, ready for Wednesday afternoon internships in downtown offices and in the library itself. That's one reason San Diego Unified Board member Richard Barrera was a big supporter of dedicating $30 million of school district bond money to a 40-year lease and upgrades for the 2 library floors that will house the school.
The structure of this school is, I think, exactly what we need to be doing more and more with high schools in the district. So it's very much focused on making use of the businesses, organizations, facilities in the downtown area, getting the kids out, doing internships, integrating real-world experience with, the academic experience.
On move-in day, Parag Chowdhury's biology and biomedical health classroom is still far from ready, but integrating the classroom and the real world are already part of his plans.
For my biology course, we're going to try to partner with community members and have students go to various health clinics, other sites that offer various services to the community at large, and see what a day in the life is like for those folks.
Biomedical health is one of 2 pre-professional pathways E3 Civic High students will choose from. The other is digital media. All of their classes will be project-based, which means students will use classroom skills to solve real-world problems. Chowdhury says his students will spend this year solving an elaborate biology-based mystery.
So through that process, students will learn a lot about forensics. They'll learn about different fingerprinting methods, blood typing, human physiology. And through that, what students are really learning is anatomy and physiology and some of the foundational principles in biomedical health.
It isn't just the school's approach to teaching that's innovative. It may be the first public school in the country located inside a library. Mel Katz sits on the boards for the high school and the Library Foundation. He says the $20 million school lease filled the need for a new downtown high school and saved fundraising efforts for the library.
The school district, it's a huge win for, because you can't get a 74,000 square foot school for $30 million. And for the library, it was a great win because we needed that $20 million for our capital campaign.
Katz believes it's an investment that'll pay off for the region and for the school's students, who are mostly coming from central San Diego and south of the 94.
I think there are some great high schools in the region, but some are very, very set on four-year college, and that's their criteria. For us, it's everyone finishing with an equal education, and then they decide which way they want to go. But I guarantee you that anyone that goes to E3 Civic High will not be graduating and in 5 years making minimum wage.
We have these niches for students to sit and work.
School director Helen Griffith says her staff are ready to get to work.
We have been meeting consistently over the last year to make sure that all of the details are in place so that when our students show up on Tuesday, they have an exceptional experience.
Whether or not all of the classrooms are unpacked and ready to go, students and their parents will be at an 8 a.m. ribbon cutting Tuesday morning. Kyla Calvert, KPBS News.
San Diego researchers are hoping to get a better understanding of the spread of ovarian cancer. Amitha Sharma is here with more.
Ovarian cancer is often a quiet disease. Few symptoms make it one of the hardest forms of cancer to detect. As a result, tumors are discovered late, making a diagnosis practically a death sentence. But doctors at Scripps Clinic are working on identifying relapse at an earlier point, which could contribute to early detection. Here to discuss the research are Dr. Kelly Bethel of Scripps Clinic and cancer survivor Joan Wiley. Dr. Bethel, tell us how you're using blood samples to understand the spread of this cancer.
We are using a newly developed technology we call the fluid biopsy, which gives us the ability to find cancer cells from an ovarian cancer that are circulating in the bloodstream. So by doing a blood draw, we can find cells from an ovarian cancer and pull them out of the blood cells that make up most of our blood and analyze those cells. So we are doing a bunch of different analyses on those, and we're starting now with women who have already been diagnosed with ovarian cancer to try to pull these cells out and see if they are in early stages of relapse.
So what's the status of the entire research project?
So there are actually multiple parts to the research project, but this part that we're talking about today that's funded by Joan's group has to do with women who have already been diagnosed with ovarian cancer and are either actively treating their disease or who are waiting to find out if they're going to be recurring or not. And we have enrolled about half of the women that we're looking for, so we're looking for about 19 more women right now.
So, Joan, you're a part of this research. Back in 2008, you were diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. What did it take for you to actually get that diagnosis?
Well, I was actually misdiagnosed by 9 physicians for a total of 6 months. And then I demanded laparoscopic surgery because I knew something was definitely wrong.
And what was your reaction? What was the reaction of the physicians?
Well, during the misdiagnosis, well, I went from, they usually send you to gastrointestinal doctors, to urologists, to internists. gynecologist, and during that time they kept saying it was either irritable bowel or it was urinary tract infections, because it does mimic other diseases. Finally, after the 9th physician, it was a psychologist who told me it was probably in my head. I said, no, I'm going to seek exploratory or laparoscopic surgery, which I did.
So they did it, and then what happened? What's your prognosis at this point?
Well, actually, if I believed in statistics, which 5 years ago they told me I had a 5% chance of actually surviving even a year, because I was so bad with my diagnosis. But now here I am 5 years later, and I've been cancer-free with no recurrences, knock on wood, and I'm very, very healthy.
So you've started a group called 9 Girls Ask. What's the group all about? Why'd you start it?
I started it during my chemo because I reached out once I was diagnosed and I had no one to turn to, and I thought it would be so valuable for me to find someone who had walked in my steps before me, because it is a very scary disease. And I couldn't find anyone, so I decided to start 9 Girls Ask. For one reason, I have 5 granddaughters and 3 daughters and myself. We total 9, and we're age 8 to 68. And it does affect women of all ages, even though usually women who are more mature. And I decided I wanted to be there to be able to lend a shoulder to, let someone know what to expect once experiencing ovarian cancer.
And Dr. Bethel, what should women expect when they're experiencing this?
Well, I think that although Joan's experience with the lack of early diagnosis was extreme, I do think it's a disease that presents very vaguely. Unlike many cancers that produce a lump that you can feel, or you get a cough if you have lung cancer, ovarian cancer is very subtle. It produces subtle abdominal discomfort, and so certainly women should aggressively pursue going to their doctor when they're having these vague kinds of symptoms.
And Joan, what were some of your symptoms?
Well, I'd like to actually read the symptoms of ovarian cancer if it's all right, because I don't want to miss any. So if a woman is experiencing 1 or 2, 3 of these for more than 2 weeks, she needs to seek help with her gynecologist. I had abdominal pressure, and I had almost every single one of these. Abdominal pressure and severe bloating and discomfort, nausea, indigestion or gas, constipation, diarrhea or frequent urination, abnormal bleeding, unusual fatigue, unexplained weight loss or gain, shortness of breath. Any of those symptoms, if you combine 2 or 3 of them, you should see your physician.
And we're going to wrap it there. Joan Wiley, Dr. Bethel, thank you so much for coming on the program today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Jeffrey Brown. On the next News Hour, the latest on the U.S. response to Syria. That's Monday on the PBS NewsHour.
35 years after her first attempt, Diana Nyad completed the 110-mile swim from Cuba to Florida today, the first person to ever do it without a shark tank. This was her 5th try.
I got 3 messages. One is, we should never, ever give up. Okay. 2 is, you're never too old to chase your dreams. That's right. Amen, sister. 3 is, it looks like a solitary sport, but it's a team.
Yes, it is. Nyad's team included doctors. She is fine. She was checked out at the hospital. And a boat also carrying gear to generate an electrical field, part of that team to keep those sharks away. Of course, this was a good day in San Diego to be along the coast or even at the beach. Warm weather will continue into the work week with temperatures along the coast in the 80s, low 90s, and partly cloudy for the inland valleys. We may see some thunderstorms in the mountain areas this week and also in the desert with temperatures above 100. Dozens of collaborative art pieces will soon be on display at Southwestern College's Art Gallery. The exhibit features work by combat veterans who were taught how to turn their anxiety over war into a reflective therapeutic experience to help them transition back into civilian life.
We've got, the really stormy clouds, but then there's always that point in time where they find the light.
Artist Elizabeth Washburn has been helping combat vets work through the emotions of war by putting them on canvas. The artwork themes range from darkness to light, pride and service to feelings of guilt and shame.
This exhibition is going to help with just getting the word out that this program is out there for you, for veterans, for their families.
She says the public plays a key role, too, in this process because it's designed to bring them closer and break down the stereotypes of post-traumatic stress disorder.
This is an opportunity to personalize the veteran a little bit more, create a little bit of a sense of intimacy between the public and the veteran.
Southwestern College in Chula Vista has been promoting art since the 1960s, and this exhibit will help raise money for a new veteran center on campus. Arts professor David Quattrochoki is responsible for bringing the exhibit to campus. He also served as a Navy SEAL during Vietnam.
So it's very powerful stuff, and it's very personal, and just a great thing to show.
The exhibit, In Transition, opens on Thursday at Southwestern College's Art Gallery and runs through October 1st. Southwestern College is home to about 1,000 veterans. Funds raised from its gala on September 21st will help expand the school's Veterans Center. You can find tonight's stories and download the KPBS app all on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. Good night.